Good evening. Tonight, a musical surprise as the Beatles topple.
Led Zeppelin's untitled fourth album, more commonly known as Led Zeppelin IV, was a powerhouse record that delivered some of the most iconic songs we know today.
It's cool, it's groovy, it's number one, the Led Zeppelin.
Everything from the 8-minute saga of Stairway to Heaven to the Hobbit references of Misty Mountain Hop, they all had an incredible impact on music history.
The Led, what?
The Led Zeppelin, but I'm afraid that you and other dads like you, Bob, may never have heard of them.
But there's another song, and within that song, just 6 seconds that have been so influential that they've altered the course of entire genres of music for the better. But prior to 1971, Led Zeppelin previously made 2 failed attempts at recording this song. Today, we're going to break down how it finally became the version we know and love, and even bust some very popular myths along the way. We'll see how Led Zeppelin and this one obscure song truly changed music forever.
Hello everybody and welcome back to All Right Now. I want to tell you we've scored an absolute coup here on this show, because we're going to do probably the only interview of John Bonham ever done. Mind you, when you see it, you'll probably realise why it's the only one ever done. But before that, we have a wee magic thing on the video here.
Now there's one thing you have to keep in mind while we unravel this story. The key to it all can be summed up in this one quote from Robert Plant. Bonzo was the main part of the band. He was the man who made whatever Page and I wrote basically work, by what he held back, by what he didn't do to the tempos. I don't think there's anyone in the world who could replace him. But as we dive deeper into the story behind the song, we're going to see that it wasn't just Bonham, but a host of unexpected characters that made its magic and impact possible. The story of Led Zeppelin begins in the late 1960s when guitarist Jimmy Page was wrapping up his time with the British rock band The Yardbirds. Page sought to form a new group, and after a few lineup changes, he recruited vocalist Robert Plant, drummer John Bonham, and bassist John Paul Jones. Together, they formed Led Zeppelin in 1968. Led Zeppelin quickly gained a reputation for their explosive live performances and powerful sound, which combined elements of blues, rock, and folk. Their early years were filled with relentless touring and a determination to make their mark on the music world.
We've spent years and years on the road, sort of playing in little church halls and being beaten up and bricks thrown through the van windows and everything.
Their live performances soon caught the attention of Atlantic Records, a label well known for signing some of the biggest names in the music industry. The band was snapped up in an unprecedented deal for a new act, and crucially, artistic control over their music, a rare perk for new bands. In 1969, Led Zeppelin released their self-titled debut album, a potent blend of original compositions and reimagined blues covers. This blueprint of blending old with new would become a cornerstone of the band's catalog, and was a foreshadowing of the transformation they would bring beyond rock music.
But now in 92...
But we're getting to that. What set their debut album apart was the fusion of hard-hitting rock with the raw emotion of the blues. Tracks like Good Times, Bad Times featured Bonham's dynamic drumming and the introduction of his bass drum triplets, while Babe I'm Gonna Leave You demonstrated the band's ability to seamlessly merge hard rock with delicate acoustic passages. And Dazed and Confused became a quintessential Zeppelin track, starting with a haunting slow tempo that builds to a climactic frenzy featuring Page's innovative guitar bowing technique. The final result was an album that was a revelation at the time, and the innovation that the band displayed here was only the beginning. Their second album, Led Zeppelin II, was released later that same year and displayed heavier riffs and a richer sound, showcased with tracks like Whole Lotta Love, which became an instant classic with its guttural guitar riff, Bonham's pounding drums, and Robert Plant's raw vocals.
But this British group has made musical history today.
Led Zeppelin II was a commercial success, reaching #1 on the charts in the US and the UK, and outpacing even the Beatles' Abbey Road for sales in the US.
The significance is that the Beatles have held this title for 8 years, but now the Beatles are out.
The album was pivotal in establishing Led Zeppelin's growing reputation as an international sensation and heavy hitters in the rock world. Touring in the States intensified, leading to sold-out shows and a growing fan base.
You know, if you've listened to all the albums, you'll be able to listen to something and say, that sounds like Zeppelin, because it's a sound, you know.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, each album is very different. There's a lot of different things on each one.
The band's exploration of diverse musical styles continued with Led Zeppelin 3, released in 1970. The album marked a departure from their previous hard rock sound, delving into a diverse mix of acoustic elements.
I thought 3 was especially different from 1 and 2, which were basically very heavy sort of music, and there's a lot of acoustic stuff on 3.
Songs like Immigrant Song, with its Viking themes, and Friends, with its unique string arrangements, displayed the band's willingness to stretch the boundaries of rock music. This courageous musical experimentation gave the band an edge, and once again, they struck gold. Despite initial mixed reviews, Led Zeppelin 3 topped the charts and demonstrated the band's ability to continuously reinvent themselves and their sound.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting beside a guy who is possibly the best rock and roll drummer on earth. Would you agree with that?
Led Zeppelin's 4th album, widely known as Led Zeppelin 4, is the band's most celebrated work, and for good reason.
Have you done anything different on your new album?
This 1971 album was the culmination of their musical evolution, and a masterpiece of rock that presented a perfect blend of the band's diverse influences and their unique style. The band had truly defined their signature sound. This is where the band as a whole moved even further away from the traditional rock and roll formula. Each member was at the top of their game. Page's guitar work was unmatched, Jones' bass lines provided a powerful undercurrent, Bonham's drumming was a lesson in power and drive, and Plant's vocals soared over it all with otherworldly intensity. The opening track, Black Dog, was a nod to their blues influences, yet twisted into something wholly unique. The a cappella opening, followed by the heavy, riff-driven verses, and the call and response structure between Plant's vocals and Page's guitar created a magnetic tension that drew listeners in immediately. The track showcased Led Zeppelin's innovative approach to songwriting, taking classic elements of blues and transforming them into a hard rock anthem. Stairway to Heaven, arguably one of the most famous rock songs of all time, is a testament to the band's ability to create epic, complex compositions. The track starts as a folk ballad, with soft acoustic guitars and recorders, before slowly building to a climactic electric finish. This progression mirrors the lyrical journey of the song. All in all, the song perfectly encapsulated the essence of Led Zeppelin. Going to California, a beautiful acoustic number, showcased the band's folksier side. Is that a word, folksier? Misty Mountain Hop, with its thick, driving keyboard riff and Bonham's solid drums, takes listeners on a psychedelic journey. The song further illustrates the band's adventurous spirit and their ability to blend different music styles seamlessly. The album ends with the monumental When the Levee Breaks, a powerful blues rock song underpinned by Bonham's thunderous drumming. But we'll get to that soon enough.
Led Zeppelin have taken over where the Beatles left off because people are now interested in young musicians rather than in, say, what Paul McCartney had for breakfast.
Led Zeppelin 4 was a commercial and critical success, cementing Led Zeppelin's place in rock history. It topped the charts in several countries and is one of the best-selling albums of all time. The album not only highlighted each member's musical prowess, but also their collective creative vision. Their willingness to push boundaries and experiment with different musical styles resulted in a timeless album that continues to inspire musicians to this day. And it is here, at the end of this groundbreaking album, that we find our focal point. The earth-shattering track that is When the Levee Breaks.
The legendary rock and roll band Led Zeppelin.
This is the one that a lot of people have been waiting for.
But to understand its brilliance, we need to take a closer look at the genius behind its creation. Because it's not Jimmy Page, it's not Robert Plant, or John Paul Jones, or even John Bonham. But first, if you're finding inspiration from this video and John Bonham's thunderous drumming, and want to learn to do that yourself, make sure you check out my free Technique Fundamentals course on my website to learn the techniques you need to develop speed and effortless power like Bonham does right here. The original genius behind When the Levee Breaks is actually Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe McCoy, the original writers of the song, all the way back in 1929. Born as Lizzie Douglas in Louisiana in 1897, Memphis Minnie was one of the most influential blues artists of her time. Her guitar skills were legendary, and she was a renowned songwriter. Kansas Joe McCoy, born in 1905, was a masterful guitarist and vocalist. Together, they made a formidable musical partnership, but they soon found themselves living in the middle of a catastrophe. In 1927, the Mississippi Delta was grappling with one of the most devastating floods in American history. The Great Flood of 1927 was a tragic moment in their community, one they felt needed to be captured and remembered. It was in this context of shared hardship and personal experiences that When the Levee Breaks was born. The lyrics were filled with a raw desperation that was palpable.
All crying won't help you, praying won't do no good.
The original recording of the song was a simple arrangement. When the Levee Breaks was not an instant classic, but what the couple didn't know is that the song they had written would become a timeless piece of music, transcending the era in which it was written. The music was a narrative of the human experience, framed by an event that was all too real for the people of the Mississippi Delta. And while Led Zeppelin would transform the song into something different altogether, the core of the original, its heart and soul, remained the same. Now, like I said before, Led Zeppelin had a hard time pulling off re-recording this blues classic. In 1970, they attempted an early version of When the Levee Breaks that we can hear for ourselves, now titled as If It Keeps On Raining, off of their 2015 reissue of Coda. This initial take is far more subdued than the final version, with decidedly more bluesy vocals that harks back to the song's melancholy lyrics. Listen in particular to the bass and the drums in this early version. Both are much more punctual, playing off each other in a way that I'd call funkier, but the song as a result lacked the cohesion and incredible drive that you'll hear in the later recordings. Still, this raw, stripped-back version presented a clear snapshot of the band in the midst of a sonic evolution. Let's fast forward to the start of the album's recording process, which brought Led Zeppelin to Island Studios and another go at recording When the Levee Breaks. Now, Island Studios, a converted 17th century chapel in West London, was the studio of choice for countless legendary artists throughout the 70s. And everyone from Bob Marley, Jethro Tull, and Jeff Beck recorded classics here. But this still wouldn't prove to be the ingredient that Led Zeppelin needed for When the Levee Breaks. To produce that magic, the band had to relocate their sessions to Headley Grange, an 18th century workhouse that had been converted into a recording studio. The band was fond of this spot as it allowed them to get away from the typical studio environment and gave them the freedom to experiment. With what was soon to come, the Grange is now held in almost mystical reverence.
I thought it was a little far-fetched growing up.
We're going to break this drum sound down in detail and later learn why it had such a long-lasting impact on other eras of music.
Snoop, Dre, Ice Cube, this is like a part of our musical DNA.
But first, in order to understand it all, you have to hear what engineer Andy Johns had to say about the recording.
We went to this house called Headley Grange. It was the first time I'd really heard Bonzo's drums sound like they did when he stood next to them, and it was the first time he didn't complain either.
Or, as Jimmy Page simply puts it, Headley Grange was somewhat rundown. The heating didn't work, but it had one major advantage. Other bands had rehearsed there and hadn't had any complaints. That's a major issue because you don't want to go somewhere and start locking into the work process and then have to pull out. The atmosphere and environment were clearly paying off for the band, with Robert Plant writing most of Stairway to Heaven on the grounds in a single day. But there was another stairway that would prove even more influential than that.
This is the hall where the drums were set up and where Levee Breaks.
After moving to Headley Grange, the band discovered a truly magical acoustic environment within the 3-story stairwell of the house.
So we rolled up and it had this big lobby with stairs going up to landings, kind of like a hotel lobby or something, you know, smaller hotel.
This wasn't a conventional recording environment, but created a unique reverberation when the drums were played.
You're getting the drums reflecting off of the walls.
The high ceiling and the structure of the space gave the drums a larger-than-life feel, which would prove instrumental in creating the definitive version of When the Levee Breaks.
Yeah, you can hear the reflective surfaces, you know, it's really live and ambient.
Okay, here's where the legends and myths come in. It's often repeated that the acoustics of this 3-story stairway were what created those magical echoes, like these comments. And, well, it's incredible how this information continues to spread decades later, but it's a bit off target. There was actually a lot more that went into achieving this legendary drum sound once we dig in, and I want to share with you just how they did it. The recording process was a delicate balance of precision and improvisation. Firstly, the Ludwig kit was situated at the bottom of the stairwell in the lobby. 2 biodynamic M160 microphones were then hung up a flight of stairs, capturing the sound of the drums bouncing around the hall.
And I got a couple of M160s, which are very directional bio mics, double ribbon. I put those about halfway up the first set of stairs and compressed the crap out of them.
The output from these microphones were fed into a pair of Helios F760 compressors set to aggressively compress the sound, creating an incredible attack and breathing effect on the drums. Recording at Headley Grange gave the band the freedom they needed to try new things. The acoustics of the stairwell and the use of the compressors gave the drums a sound they never imagined.
When I got that sound, that was my first reaction. Jesus, he's actually going to be happy at last. So that's how we did that. But good luck in getting that sound again, because you really do need Bonzo.
But that wasn't the only ingredient that was needed to create the magic.
We also had a thing called a Binson Echo-Rec, which is tough to find now.
We're going to take a listen to this in a minute, because the Echo-Rec was known for its unique warm delays, and it was even a signature part of Pink Floyd's sound. Pink Floyd members Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Richard Wright, and even Syd Barrett used it to great effect on many of their classic songs. And just like Pink Floyd's influence, we have to talk about the influence the Levee drum break has had on recorded music, which is nothing short of revolutionary. It was more than just a unique sound, it was a testament to the transformative power of experimentation. Taking advantage of the natural acoustics of Headley Grange, Led Zeppelin created something raw, something that shattered traditional recording paradigms. That daring spirit of experimentation, captured inside the Levee drum break, inspired generations of musicians to push the boundaries of what is possible in music production.
I think it's changing. That's the main thing, you see. I think that's why the awards have changed, because the kids are changing for a start, and so is the music changing.
Many artists have put their own spin on this drum break, and I'll be highlighting a few notable examples, but I bet there are tons I've missed. So if you know a great track that samples this beat that I haven't mentioned, drop it in the comments below so we don't miss any.
Back to the OG, you know what I'm saying? But let me tell you what you gonna need, homie. You gonna need a crazy, stupid, fly, slamming beat. Oh, yo, I got that, Holmes.
In the world of hip-hop, the break became a go-to sample for producers seeking to inject their tracks with more grit and pocket.
Midnight, chillin' at AM, PM, coolin', drinking apple juice.
And in rock and pop, it served as a sonic reference point, the heavy echoing beat a nod to John Bonham's spirit. Its echo can be heard in the beats of the Beastie Boys' Rhyming and Stealin', the propulsive rhythms of Dr. Dre's lyrical gangbang, and even the atmospheric soundscapes of Massive Attack's Man Next Door. In an era where digital production tools have streamlined the music-making process entirely, Bonham's drum break stands as a potent reminder of the magic that can be created when musicians embrace the power of acoustics and experimentation. As producers continue to sample, remix, and reimagine this iconic beat, they are not just borrowing its sound, they're carrying forward its legacy of innovation even today. So what about that echo? Well, during my research, I found that the Binson Echo-Rec unit was recently recreated and relaunched in 2023 by the company T-Rex. This isn't a plugin, it's the real deal. You can really hear how the guitar in this demo is beautifully broken up and distorted in the delays. I mean, imagine what it can do for drums. Well, we don't have to imagine it. It's right there in the magic of when the Levee breaks. John Bonham's drumming continues to influence musicians and drummers around the world. For me, it's the drive and power in this groove in particular that captures me the most. But if there are other Zeppelin songs or Bonham moments that have made a difference in your own sound and style, let me know in the comments. Because all of this is why When the Levee Breaks has one of the grooviest, most compelling, and one of the most sampled beats ever played and put to record. But is it the most sampled? No, it's not. But if you want to learn more about why these drum beats continue to inspire all of us to invent new music so many decades later, you need to watch this video right here.
And I'm going to ask him a most important question here. John, we've been watching that bit film there, and you do some really it must have taken you years to learn to play like that, did it?
Not really.